On July 12, 2011, a baseball memorabilia auction held right before the All-Star game in Phoenix, Arizona, generated a frenzy of publicity. The most coveted prize up for sale was a bat that was used by the legendary Babe Ruth to hit a towering home run on the afternoon of September 5th, 1929. The auction opened with a flurry of online bids, which rapidly brought the highest bid for the Louisville Slugger to $68,600. But that was just the beginning. During the live section of the auction, wealthy bidders stepped forward. In the end, the bat sold for $126,500. Ruth's home run did not come in a pennant match or in a World Series game. That day, the New York Yankees traveled to Sing Sing Prison on the Hudson River to play an exhibition game against an inmate team comprised of some of America's most dangerous criminals. Sing Sing's 1,500 inmates gathered under the eyes of machine gun-bearing guards to watch the game. Watching in the stands was the man who orchestrated the Yankees' visit to Sing Sing. Warden Louis E. Laws did not bring baseball to Sing Sing, but shortly after arriving in 1920, he upgraded Sing Sing's field to professional caliber and installed seating for up to 3,000 spectators.
I think it's a remarkable moment of popular culture. America's team visits America's prison, in which we are surrounded by mythologies. The Sing Sing inmate, even the mythology surrounding the career of Louis Laws, Babe Ruth. These were enormous figures, a great public interest in them, and they suggested a kind of electric moment.
Ruth's style had helped transform the game of baseball in the 1920s, and through exhibition and barnstorming games, he brought the national pastime to small towns and cities throughout America.
It is a window into many facets of the culture. It tells us something about what Americans think about prisons, about the connection between sports and prisons, and about the way, ironically, in which Sing Sing itself has become a celebrity like Ruth was in his own time.
As warden of Sing Sing, Laws was de facto America's warden, and his views on penology were widely covered in the press and on a popular radio show.
He really did see it as part of his rehabilitative program. Baseball is a team sport, requires cooperation and all that, and commitment and trust. And these were all really important to Laws's program of rehabilitation.
The Bambino did not disappoint at Sing Sing. In the second inning, he smashed an inmate fastball with such a force that the ball cleared the prison's imposing 40-foot walls, prison watchtowers, and railroad tracks before landing on a bluff.
"The food is lousier than our team, babe!"
exclaimed one of the inmate infielders who had 10 years to go on a 25-year sentence. Louis E. Laws was born in Elmira, New York in 1883. Penology was part of the landscape of his childhood. The Elmira Reformatory for young men aged 16 through 30 was a focal point of his hometown. With an eye toward marrying his hometown sweetheart, Catherine, he took the civil service exam in 1905 and began his career at New York State's Dannemora Prison in Clinton, New York, which is remotely situated near the Canadian border. The world of corrections that Laws entered as a 22-year-old prison guard reflected in many ways practices that had been in place since the mid-19th century.
There wasn't much of a science of penology in those days. It was very cruel. Punishment was retribution. You had to make the prisoners suffer. They had to march in lockstep. They were routinely beaten. Cells were tiny, freezing cold. There was no plumbing, obviously. The men used slop buckets. It was really a terrible time for penology.
At the time, the striped uniforms the prisoners wore was a way for guards to see how many offenses each inmate had committed. Second offenders donned 2 stripes, third-time offenders 3, and inmates with 4 stripes, the most difficult, were called zebras. George Herman Ruth was born in 1895 in a working-class neighborhood along the Baltimore waterfront. Ruth grew up on the streets and was considered one of the toughest and most incorrigible youngsters in what was a rough neighborhood.
Many people thought I was born an orphan, but my folks lived in Baltimore and my father worked in the district where I was raised. We were poor, very poor, and there were times when we never knew where the next meal was coming from. But I never minded. I was no worse off than any other kid with whom I played and fought.